Welcome back to Worst Seats in the House. Mike Russo, Anthony LaPanta, bonus pod coming to you from Las Vegas, where the Wild had a very active day in a very active week, where they acquired Michael McCarron and Robbie Fabry in the last couple of days. Today they add Nick Foligno to unite him with his brother Marcus Foligno. They add Jeff Petrie yesterday and then Bobby Brink today as well. Also trade Vinny Hinostroza to Florida. First of all, Anthony, what's your initial viewpoint on these trades?
Well, it's kind of what we had been talking about the last couple shows, that, well, there has been so much talk about adding a center and adding a top six center and making a big splash move, that we thought it was becoming less and less likely that was going to be the case, and more likely to be a middle of the lineup guy. I still think there were a lot of different, someday I'd love to talk to Billy and find out just how many deals he discussed this week, because all around the league, things were so volatile. And as we talked on our last show, his comment that they were close on a couple deals and targeted a couple guys, and then all of a sudden that team's fortunes changed. I also think today, as you went around the league, I'm sure there were, I wouldn't even know where to guess, 20, 30 different players that I'm sure they inquired about to find out what the price tag might be. And some of them are guys we've mentioned. So I think what they did was probably the logical way to go about it, with adding depth to the roster. And you weren't going to get that top six centerman, so let's make sure that you have everything that you possibly can in terms of depth and flexibility throughout the bottom nine in your forward lineup.
And look around the league today, not one of those guys went. Vincent Trocheck, there's 20 minutes, to be frank, before the deadline, but right now Vincent Trocheck hasn't gone. Ryan O'Reilly hasn't gone. And as you and I have talked about, Billy has started to indicate that he wanted to be patient here and not give up top prospects, because he wants to go big game hunting via trades this summer if all of a sudden big names are out there, or even into next season. And, if you're going to give up a first-round pick and a prospect for a Ryan O'Reilly who's 35 with a year left on his deal, or even a Vincent Trocheck, now if a big guy comes available this summer, you're not going to get him. So what they did is they worked around the edges here. And, I just asked John Hines if he's worried about going into the playoffs with this centered group. And what he said is that face-offs are the most important thing. And you add a Nick Foligno, you add a Michael McCarron, who should help by taking strong side face-offs as opposed to Nico Sturm, who has been good on weak side face-offs. That's one area that they just feel like they have improved from that standpoint, even though they didn't get the top six center that nobody, by the way, got in the league.
Yeah, the price tag was too high for those guys, and it was for sure this was a seller's market. Those guys had all the leverage because there were so few teams selling. So, and you didn't mention Danila Yurov and his struggles on the dot. This is a guy who they really want to keep in the lineup, but you can't afford to have one of your centers winning 35% of his draws into the postseason. So I think we'll see him be more creative with who's on the ice for those draws. A lot like what you see in overtimes, where, hey, you're out there to win the draw, then get to the bench. I think we'll probably see more of that kind of stuff from the Wild down the stretch.
It's really interesting, because I think that if Quinn Hughes was traded to the Wild today, fans would be going crazy. But instead, you look at the reaction out there, and they feel like Bill Guerin and the staff failed because they didn't get that center. But the reality is that going into the postseason, not too many teams have a Quinn Hughes. Not too many teams have two driving wingers the way that the Wild do with Matt Boldy and Kirill Kaprizov. Do you feel that mitigates that? Because we've seen the way that Quinn has, one, helped this team win, but two, create offensively, that really the lack of centers has not really killed this team at all since December 12th when he arrived.
Yeah, just look at it in this way. If the Quinn Hughes deal was made deadline week, everybody'd be talking about what a great trade deadline it was. The fact that they just got it done 3 months ago is really just more of a testament to the Wild. They got the deal done that instead of waiting until March, they got it done in December, and that's changed this club. And they were trying to add a center. There's no doubt in my mind. But with what the price tag was, this was the right way to go about it. And
to me, it's a win that they didn't go out and give up these prospects
didn't empty the tank now for guys that aren't the ideal fit.
Yeah.
And the better deal is likely going to be out there, and we've talked at length about what those trade chips are and how few the Wild really have in terms of elite trade chips. And right now, they bolstered their roster, added some depth pieces. and they still have all four of those key trade assets that we've speculated were trade assets. It's probably unfair to even say that because we don't know for certain that those were offered in any of these deals. And I think if you look at the roster now, you've got some flexibility because somebody out of Johansson, Tarasenko, Brink has to be in your top six. But it doesn't have to be the same guy every night. It doesn't have to be the same guy every week. So this gives you some flexibility there. It probably strengthens the third line because it gives you some guys who have proven, a little more proven NHL players. And, I think John Hines' point that he made today, too, is we still have faith in the guys who have been up here filling in spot duty, guys like Ben Jones and Tyler Pitlick. Just don't have to rely on them every single night. Now they might just be a guy who, hey, we need a guy for a night or 2 nights or 3 nights, not in a third line role for a month where those guys might not be that right fit.
Let's quickly go through the pickups here. And again, this is a bonus podcast. Our next live show is Monday night, March 9th at Elsie's at 7 p.m. First of all, Michael McCarron. I mean, he's somebody, it is funny. He's had a lot of run-ins with Wild players. He's fought Marcus Foligno. He's fought Jake Middleton. He has had a couple run-ins with Matt Zuccarello, who was funny, shaking his hand yesterday, asking if his hand was good. He'll debut tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights. What do you think he adds? Because he is a center, he's a wing, he's somebody that adds toughness, and he's somebody that can win draws.
That's what he adds. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the best endorsements of him was to watch Andrew Burnett talk about what it meant to lose him as a guy and as a person. So I think that's exactly what he adds. And now all of a sudden you have the potential of a fourth line heading into the playoffs of like McCarron, Trenyon, Marcus Foligno. Which could be a heck of a fourth line into the postseason.
Absolutely. Bobby Brink, somebody that the Wild were with John Tortorella at the Olympics. Clearly, John Hines talked to Tortorella, who had him in Philadelphia. Clearly, Bill Guerin and Chris Kelleher talked to Tortorella. He basically told him that how much he's turned into a pro. He's somebody that's smart. He adds skill. He's been in the under-19s with Matt Boldy, who's extremely excited to have him on the team. They had incredible chemistry there. He's somebody that, you could see him, maybe them even putting a Boldy on the left wing in the playoffs and having him on the right side and moving a Marcus Johansson down. Tonight, he'll play with Danilo Urov at right wing on the third line. So he's somebody that could play up and down the lineup. Yeah,
and that's kind of what I was getting at is where, let's say Marcus Johansson, who right now is out of the lineup injured, if he's banged up, now Brink could be that guy. Tarasenko might be that guy. You really are in a spot now where you need one of those 3 guys to be a top 6 guy, and then the other 2 can be third line guys. And that's a big addition to this club to add another guy who can score in those spots. Now, again, we're assuming that there's not another add to this roster that would potentially bump Ryan Hartman down into your bottom 6. But assuming that doesn't happen, I like the look of that quite a bit, where now all of a sudden it's on a given night, maybe Johansson, Boldy, Eriksson Ek have dried up a little bit. We'll try Brink there, even if it's within a game for a few shifts and slide Boldy to the other side. Or, we're going to get a look at Tarasenko in that spot in tonight's game against Vegas, where he's going to take the spot that Marcus Johansson had. And we've seen him excel when his role expands from time to time in short-term spots.
And then, obviously, the fun one was Nick Foligno being united with Marcus here. I talked to Marcus on the phone right after the trade came into fruition that we got word from sources. He said he was shaking. Basically, Nick Foligno called him up, lied to him, joked with him that he was traded to another team, and then broke the news that I'll see in a couple hours, meaning he was going to probably fly to Minnesota before flying to Denver and meeting the team on Saturday, and then play probably against the Avalanche on Sunday. Then Marcus broke it into the group chat. Nick's wife didn't even know he was traded to Minnesota yet, so Marcus broke the news to the family, which is kind of hilarious. What do you think Nick has at this stage in his career? I mean, he's obviously not the guy that was the captain of the Columbus Blue Jackets anymore, that was scoring 30 goals. But he's somebody that obviously we know is an incredible influence on young guys. He could play in the third and fourth line. He played center all year in Chicago, so he could play wing and center. What do you think at this stage in his career he could add? And could you see him even being an in-and-out guy?
Well, I think he will be an in-and-out guy. He did score 15 goals last year, so it isn't like he's totally dried up offensively. I listened to him after the deal, and he talked about how he was surprised a little bit how emotional he was to leave Chicago because he felt like a lot of the young players have become like younger brothers to him.
Yeah.
That's the kind of leader that he is. So I think that's what he'll bring. And I think when everybody's healthy, he for sure is an in and out guy. I don't think he's an every night guy in this lineup, but he certainly is the type of guy that's still going to be a leader even when he's in and out of the lineup. We've seen that from Marcus over the years, just how quality a player he is, a team first guy. And I thought it was, Nick this was Chicago doing him a favor to say, let's let him go have a shot to play with a winner. And I thought it was interesting the way he just said that I think this is Mom having some influence here to, before my career's over, give me a shot to go play with my brother.
That's awesome. And as everybody knows by now, they lost their mom several years ago to breast cancer. Lastly, Anthony, David Jiricek is traded away. I think when Jeff Petrie was traded yesterday, we all knew that this was probably the end of David Jiricek in some capacity today, because it just made no sense yesterday to add a veteran right shot guy, but it's because they knew they were probably throwing Jiricek in some sort of deal. They get Bobby Brink for him. Obviously, they give up a first, a second, a third, and fourth, and Damon Hunt. They get Hunt back via waivers. If you actually look at the first-round pick and where the Wild would have drafted in that window, I mean, you could make the case that you could trade that first-round pick for Bobby Brink and you get a better player than the Wild would have drafted there. So I think that it's probably a little overblown, but clearly what the Wild did here is they cut bait with somebody that they realized was probably not going to be the player that they thought he was going to be when they gave up that boatload for him.
Well, yeah, and that's the same reason why Philadelphia is willing to take a shot at him. The same thing the Wild saw. Here's a guy who was picked in the top 6, a big right shot guy with some high-end abilities, but maybe it's one more change of scenery that finally allows him to reach his potential. I mean, the time had come. For Columbus, turned out to be a great deal, because if you look at what they did with those picks and how they flipped them and what they were able to bring in return, they got a lot in return for Jiricek. And yeah, the pick itself, the first round pick itself, who knows? I think it was a goaltender from Russia that they wound up taking, and we'll find out about that. But they ended up flipping the 2 and the 3. One of them, I think, was how they got Mason Marchment, and so it was
probably Garland too.
I think it was maybe Garland, yeah. So they've done well in that deal, but for the Wild, it was time to move on, and I think adding Petrie gives them now. You've got Petrie on the right, you got Damon Hunt on the left as your extra defenseman. That's a nice luxury to have right now. And when you look around the Central Division, we've talked about the top end D. I think Minnesota, I'd put their defensive core up against anybody in the league. But when you look at the Central with what Colorado's got on the back end, what Dallas has on the back end, and Utah adding Mackenzie Weegar to really strengthen their top 4, you might be talking about as good a division as there's been in terms of the top 4 teams in the division with what they've got on the blue line.
Well, that is the bonus podcast. Tonight, Vegas, NHL or Wild debuts for Michael McCarron, Bobby Brink, and then in Colorado, most likely Nick Foligno. Thanks to our incredible sponsors. And by the way, again, March 9th, Monday night, 7 p.m. at Elsie's. Come see Anthony and I for a live show. But thanks to our incredible sponsors, Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer for Connecticut water treatment systems, Onyx Maps, and Royal Credit Union. See you Monday night, everybody.
So much coming out, there's